Hello, my name is Ayanna Fourte. I'm a junior psychology major, Spanish minor from Chicago, Illinois, and I'm also a part of the RISE program at Spelman College. Over the past summer and school year, I've had the pleasure and opportunity of working under the mentorship of Dr. Kimberly Williams at both the University of Pennsylvania and Spelman College. The title of this research project is Neuroinflammatory Processes Seen During HIV and PTSD May be Reduced by Estrogen Signaling. HIV is a lentivirus that affects about 1.2 million people in the United States alone. Despite the success of combined antiretroviral therapeutics, we still see that about 30 to 50% of people living with HIV experience some form of HIV-associated neurocognitive disorders, otherwise known as HAND. HAND is a spectrum of disorders ranging from the most severe form of the disease, known as HIV-associated dementia, or HAD, to the most mild form of the disease, known as asymptomatic neurocognitive impairment, or ANI. Post-CART era, we saw a reduction in the most severe form of the disease. However, we still see that about 50% of patients suffer from some form of HAND, and we expect to see more neural disorders in patients as they age. Previous studies have shown that not only are these patients living with HIV, but about 30 to 50% of patients living with HIV have also been clinically diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. The diagnosis of HIV in itself has been classified as a traumatic event, and not many connections are known between HAND and PTSD. But one thing that we do know is that they've both been associated with neuroinflammation. Neuroinflammation is the introduction of external stimuli, injury, or infection, which can cause inflammation in the central nervous system, or CNS. Our lab has been able to utilize an in vitro model of neuroinflammation in which we're able to take monocyte-derived human macrophages, infect them with HIV, and collect their supernatants, which will be holding the neurotoxins that they're emitting, and place this media onto rat cortical neurons in order to assess neuronal damage. From my literary search over this school year, we found many connections between estrogen and HIV and PTSD and the neuroinflammation associated with HIV and PTSD. In the results in these images, we see that estradiol did have a blocking effect for the neurotoxic effects of HIV, and we're also able to see that HIV did have a neurotoxic effect on these neurons. In this first image, we see our mock neurons, which is our control group, meaning that these are from the healthy donor and the macrophage infected media did not have any infection, meaning that this is our control group and there is no HIV stimulation in this image. So that's why we see healthy neurons, which are abundant, in comparison to the neurons that were treated with HIV infected macrophage media. We see that we had about a 50% reduction in neuronal count, which we can also observe in this bar chart directly below. We see about a 50% decline between our mock data and our HIV. As we move to the right, we see an increasing dosage amount in estradiol starting at 0.1 nanomolar and increasing amounts. In this first image, we begin to see a little more green, meaning that the estradiol began to have reversal effects on this neurotoxic effect. And as we increase the dosage, we see even more of a reversing effect. However, we were able to see that this was an estrogen receptor specific response because when we introduced the estradiol antagonist, known as ICI, in this last image, then we see that the neurotoxic effects were once again present and the ICI blocked the estradiol effect that was bringing the neuronal health back. So we were able to see that estradiol could be a potential therapeutic to the neuroinflammation that we see in both HIV and PTSD. However, we still want to see the role that PTSD plays in this more, because this study was conducted using HIV only. So for that reason, in our next experiment, we would like to use macrophages from patients that have been clinically diagnosed with PTSD, so we can see what role that plays. Our hypothesis was that decreased estrogen signaling in donors with a history of post-traumatic stress disorder exposed to inactivated HIV will exacerbate macrophage or microglial-induced oxidative stress, inflammation, and neuronal damage. In the future, as I mentioned, we would like to use human monocyte-derived macrophages from patients diagnosed with PTSD and utilize our Western blot in order to assess the changes in phenotypes in our macrophages, such as neuroinflammation and changes in protein, utilizing the Western blot, as we have before. In summary, about 30 to 50% of people living with HIV suffer from some form of hand and or PTSD. Neuronal damage and neuroinflammation has been seen in both PTSD and hand. However, estrogen signaling may reduce neuroinflammation and neuronal damage seen in patients affected by both hand and PTSD. So in summary, estradiol could be a potential therapeutic to this neuroinflammation that we see. I'd like to give acknowledgments to the RISE program, Dr. Kimberly Williams in the KSW lab, as well as Dr. Kelly Jordan Shudo at the University of Pennsylvania, and to all of my supporters. Thank you so much, and I'd like to open the floor to any questions, comments. Thank you.